St. Mary's Sacred Heart Church in Kolkata functioned as a fortress of absolute purity. Inside these walls, young women surrendered every worldly attachment to live a life of strict discipline and religious devotion. When 22-year-old Maria arrived, she carried a thick, immovable layer of grief that set her apart from the other initiates. She avoided eye contact and remained entirely silent, her bleak demeanor clashing with the holy environment. The first sign of a deeper anomaly appeared during a silent evening prayer. A fellow nun, Ruma, noticed Maria standing in the back, muttering. When Ruma moved closer, she heard a harsh, dual-toned, masculine growl leaking out of the girl. In an institution built on flawless religious conformity, any psychological or physical deviation is treated as a spiritual infection, an external, unholy threat that has breached the sanctuary. That threat manifested physically late one night. Ruma peeked through the window of Maria's room and found her sitting in a chair with her limbs braided together at impossible angles, like a discarded rubber doll. Her eyes were ringed in pitch black, and her teeth appeared charred. The screams brought Mother Agnes, the head of the center, rushing into the room. When Agnes approached with a cross, Maria dropped to the floor, lunging like a feral animal, tearing flesh from the older woman's arm. Father Steve eventually managed to corner the girl, throwing holy water directly at her. Upon contact, the liquid seared her skin like boiling acid, raising severe, weeping blisters across her face and neck. The church leadership reached an immediate conclusion. Maria was suffering from a textbook demonic possession, requiring a formalized exorcism to save her soul. This diagnosis left a massive logical gap. A dark entity bypassing thousands of sinners to breach a heavily protected sanctuary suggests a specific existing vulnerability within the church walls. 3 days later, Father Edmund arrived to conduct the official ritual. He secured Maria to a chair, surrounded her with candles, and began chanting the rites. Halfway through the ritual, the entity stopped fighting the prayers and shifted targets. Mother Agnes's eyes rolled back into her head, and the dark influence used her own vocal cords to force a confession. The voice revealed that Maria was originally a singer at a local city church. There, she had a secret romantic relationship with a young priest named Father Neil, resulting in a pregnancy. To preserve the church's prestige, Neil and Mother Agnes entered a desperate conspiracy to eliminate the evidence. The crisis at St. Mary's grew from a calculated, self-serving move by the church's own leadership, a desperate attempt to bury their sins and protect their prestige. Under the cover of a storm, Agnes and Neil induced an early labor and lied to Maria, claiming her child was stillborn. The infant was actually alive. Father Neil and Mother Agnes took the child to the church cemetery and buried the newborn in a shallow grave while it was still breathing. Maria spent every night at the graveyard, weeping over the spot where she thought her child was buried. That relentless grief hollowed out her spiritual defenses, creating a psychic void in the center of her chest. This void functioned as a magnet for the nearest vengeful entity, the tortured soul of her murdered infant. It locked directly into its mother's body, using her as a vessel to seek justice. The possession was the agonizingly natural result of Maria's profound trauma, a mother's grief and an infant's murdered innocence, finally finding a shared vessel for their vengeance. Father Edmund's ritual failed completely, as the exorcism shifted into an act of terrifying supernatural retribution. The entity inside Maria seized control, levitating Father Neil and Mother Agnes high above the church floor, their bodies rigid from unseen forces. Maria's voice snarled a single phrase: "One sin, one punishment." Instantly, the clothing on both suspended holy figures ignited in spontaneous, roaring flames. The holy water on the floor was useless. Neil and Agnes burned to death near the ceiling, and as they died, Maria's broken body finally collapsed. The exorcism failed because of a mechanical misunderstanding. Religious rituals are designed to expel trespassing evil. They have no power to stop the universe from delivering justified vengeance. Maria physically survived the ordeal, though she remained psychologically broken. The associated churches were permanently closed following the tragedy. Father Edmund was left with a lasting trauma, realizing that a lifetime of religious study offered no defense against the consequences of human cruelty. The rot at St. Mary's was an entirely human creation. The most dangerous monsters stand in the light, draped in robes of righteousness, willing to commit atrocities simply to preserve an illusion of sanctity.